AR and VR focused startups. And then each one of those startups is focused on a different industry. So we have marketing and healthcare and training and education, kind of like all the big buckets where we see opportunity within immersive media in general. And then because we're a portfolio, we're actually an attractive entity for investors. So if you're looking to invest in AR and VR, there's pretty minimal options right now, unless you go with like a Google or Facebook. Or you invest directly into one startup, but that startup is typically only doing one thing. So the fact that we are 11 different things all under one roof, that's like an attractive element of our business. And we have a total team of 90 people across the entire organization. And then just this summer, we were successful in going public. So we're the first AR VR software provider to be public. Up until now, the only other publicly traded AR VR entities, again, are the big Facebooks, as well as a couple of the hardware manufacturers that make headsets and stuff. So as Chief Creative Officer of the Glimpse Group, overseeing all of these different divisions, common question I get asked is, how is the industry doing? This is like a common industry growth chart that's out there in the world. It's called a Gartner hype curve. And I think they just got tired of putting AR and VR on this curve because as of last year, it wasn't even showing up because it was on since around 2013. In my view, I have a little bit of a different view of how the industry is doing. And it's pretty much been a linear line for me since it first started. I think if anything, there's a little bit of an uptick recently with COVID and with Facebook's announcements, and then with the Oculus Quest 2 coming out at $299. So I think the curve is starting to bend up a little bit, but we have a long way to go, and we're really not in a position where we're close to being mass adopted. The driving factors are definitely the hardware. So back in 2016, there were really not great options to experience VR. Many people first experienced VR on their phone, but inherently that experience is not really comfortable. It doesn't have the full tracking capability. The phone would heat up. The experiences weren't great. Really, you needed to invest like $2,500 for a Vive and a computer and a wire. But now in the 5 years since, we're an order of magnitude less. And because of that, we're an order of magnitude more of adoption, which is really great. And for our enterprise customers, it's really helpful to have a robust VR hardware solution that fits in the shoebox that's only $300. So that has definitely helped business. On the AR side of things, I kind of view it in really two tracks. So the top one is just what we can do with our phones. And that really has really exploded in the last few years. And that's due to the filters that you might see on TikTok or Instagram, the purchasing of items on Amazon or IKEA. So there's more and more capabilities being put into our phones for this to view augmented reality information. And I think of all of our businesses, the AR mobile marketing division in our entity is the most busy. They're the most robust, and it's like that technology is the most mature out of all of the other stuff that we're doing. There will eventually be this thing called AR Wearables, which is basically a VR headset that you can have pass through, so you can see the room, but you can bring computer generated information into our space. Apple has been teasing us about that for many years, and Facebook now is saying that they're developing their own headset. But I think where we're many years away from really having mass adoption, considering that kind of first VR headset came out in 2013, and we're really just getting to a consumer point 8 years later. So this again is accessibility of AR on our phones has definitely increased drastically. So even with this QR code, if you point your phone at it, you'll be able to bring an AR object right into your space without downloading an app. So for a long time, you had to download an app in order to view AR. And from a consumer's or enterprise point of view, that was a real challenge because it's tough to convince anybody to download an app. But now as our phones get more advanced, more of these capabilities are built right into the operating system, which really helps with adoption. What we're seeing across the board is just increases in immersive media in all different forms. So massive amounts of impressions and involvement for immersive types of content in these traditional non-VR types of worlds, but Roblox and Fortnite, their trajectory is towards VR. And it's really great to see the amount of engagement that these platforms are seeing with these computer-generated, avatar-based, VR-like concerts. So Travis Scott, 46 million viewers, Lil Nas, 33 million viewers. And this trend is going to continue. And it's really very clear that these concerts will ultimately end up in a VR headset once there's enough scale. So here's a couple more examples of AR and VR in enterprise. These are some of the businesses and products that the Glimpse Group has. One thing we're doing is support groups. So picture like an Alcoholics Anonymous type of meeting where you wouldn't have to leave your house. You would put on a headset. You're now sitting next to other peers, as well as a psychologist or a moderator. You can wear a mask, your digital avatar, and be able to open up about your feelings. And we're working with several different entities on pilot programs using this technology, and the early signs of success are really robust. It's really been really amazing to see. Training is kind of like the low-hanging fruit of the industry. With just the simple premise of it's easier to learn by doing something versus watching somebody do it or reading about it. And retention and understanding, like there's really robust science and survey that support this. And we're doing a bunch of pilots on the training side of things from many different industries, healthcare to pharmaceuticals to industrial. And then another division that we're very active is just the education market. I think universities in general are trying to incorporate this technology. This one project we just finished up is actually an online university where the dean of the school wanted to build a VR campus. So as an online university, strictly, they would typically only have Zoom classes. And the idea is to recreate campus life and allow students to have kind of that big university feel, but in the form factor of a VR headset. So it's super cool project that we were working on. And then here's a bunch of augmented reality examples that we've been working on. Again, this is more at scale in my mind, but this is a augmented reality food menu. We would scan in food so you could see three-dimensional life-size versions of the dishes. We do a bunch of like tourism, Instagram lenses, Snapchat lenses. We're partners with Snapchat, partners with Google. So brands want to create basically new types of engagement with the younger demographic. So they're creating these little brand filters that we basically execute for them. Lots of standalone augmented reality brochures, printed brochures that come to life, poster presentations, just a lot of basically adding augmented reality to traditional media to spice up engagement. So this is kind of an augmented reality book where the presenter pops out of the book and presents. And then also a division that's focused on architectural engineering and construction. And there's various different use cases for seeing a property that's going to be developed, such as this. And it can kind of pop out of your conference room table. And then also visualization of how something would look actually on site. And let's see, so just to kind of wrap things up, so AR mobile hardware capabilities will continue to improve. So phone manufacturers, they've kind of hit the limit of what they can do with their display resolutions, their size. You know, there's just, it's tough for them to figure out what is next. How can I convince somebody to buy a new phone? And really the answer is immersive content, augmented reality, and eventually it'll be augmented reality wearables. One of the key things with that actually getting out there in mass is just the form factor. So right now the headsets are too large, but 5G technology will help basically reduce the form factor. And my view is that we will in the future not engage with phones through the little display on here. The content will basically be overlaid in our view when we're wearing the AR wearables. And then on the VR side of things, we're still really piloty in our deployments. So 2 or 3 years ago, we would deploy a Vive into a conference room. Now we're deploying 20, 50, 100 headsets into an organization, but we're still at that 50 to 100 scale. And we're just hopeful that that scale increases as larger deployments get put out there. But really the superpower, I always call these the superpowers. So one is the ability to learn. 2 is the ability to make a user feel as if they've been brought to another environment. And then 3 is our ability to feel as if you're with somebody. Those are the main superpowers in my mind of VR. So that is it on the official presentation. I'll stop sharing that and would like to open up the floor and see if that all made sense and see if you guys had any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
Where do you see user experience designers in the field of virtual reality and augmented reality?
Sure. So definitely in companies like mine, we need them more than you could ever imagine. I think that there's a lot of developers available in the industry. And the developers are kind of the first adopters. They're the ones that are tinkering with YouTube and they're making little experiences, and they're kind of the backbone of our workforce. But developers tend to have a little bit of a design mentality, usually, especially the folks that we deal with, because they're working at home and they're kind of designing and building at the same time. Now, as the industry is growing, it's really important that those developers are really paired with proper UI, UX professionals that are giving them the right blueprints on how to build. And what's really tricky is that because the medium is so new, there's not really standards. And every day, an indie developer will put something out there and it'll be like, oh, wow, this is totally a better way to do UI, UX in VR. So I think, a typical mobile developer or website developer, they have, this huge advantage of time and refinement, and best practices are kind of well known. They may tweak and you might get little design elements over time, But for the most part, it's kind of a known thing. Whereas I think VR is really new territory for most people, and even the people that spend a ton of time in it, we're constantly learning about it. So I don't know if that answered your question, but my company, that's where we need them.
Oh, that's good.
So, maybe I can ask a question for the team here. How many of you have actually used VR before? All right, we got one in the back. Cool.
I brought the headset in last week.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and I'm more of a VR person, even though the company is probably 50-50 with AR and VR. And your UI UX design for AR is obviously going to be way different than VR. I kind of default to VR. It's a little bit my favorite, and I think ultimately harder because it is so immersive and it's so unknown. The mobile stuff that we've done, we do typically, go through our QA and we have feedback on it. But a lot of the AR engagements, they can really leverage what's been done in mobile before. Just you have this, one new element where some content is going to be floating. So VR kind of turns everything upside down on people.
So what advice would you have for the students to try to get more experience as a UX UI in VR?
Yeah, I think the number one answer by far is spend time in it. And two, join the communities, both in person with meetups, Discord communities, play games and network, build your LinkedIn page around this topic, reach out to thought leaders, and build stuff and test stuff out on your friends, especially on VR though. I don't really think that you can be successful with it unless you spend time actually in it and doing it and seeing it for yourself. I think there's an old saying, it's like you can't write a book unless you read a bunch of books first. And I think VR is the same thing.
And now it's a good time to get in on it.
That's right. I thought I was a little bit too early 8 years ago, but things have gone pretty good for me. So my background before was actually construction, and I was like a owner's representative or project manager for construction. So I definitely hit a Y in my life and took a right turn, and have been very thankful for taking that leap of faith. It's been really wonderful, and we do a lot of rewarding stuff, which is even cooler. So one of the projects we're working on is we're bringing VR into kids patient ward at Montefiore Hospital for kids that have cancer. So while they're getting their infusion treatments, they have to spend 8 hours a day. We can basically put them in a headset and they can leave the patient room and go explore this fantasy world with other kids that are getting the infusion treatment at the same time. And that's just really a wonderful use case and wonderfully rewarding. And I'm really excited to see that program grow.
That's awesome.
Well, any other questions?
Actually, I have one.
Sure.
So you were talking about how the VR is going into like university settings, and personally, when I use VR, I get like dizzy, and I've mentioned this a couple times. I wanted to know where that would go for people like me who get dizzy using it for long periods of time, especially in a university setting where you're sitting down or in it for long periods of time. How would that work out for students?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So one is you have to be in experiences that are really, really comfortable. So I don't know what experiences you were in, but there is a lot of bad content out there. So first thing is you have to be in the right type of experience. Obviously, if you're put into a roller coaster or even something that is not obvious, like it could have bad frame rates, it could have motion, there's a million reasons why you could be uncomfortable. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to limit your time spent into it. You know, even gamers, you know, it's called VR legs, and they're like, you know what, play for a half hour this week and, you know, build yourself up. I think that even with the campus that we built, their intent is not to do 8 hours in VR a day. Their program is still mainly a Zoom type of scenario for most of their sessions, but it's like, okay, we're going to study Rome, and then there's going to be this VR lab where the students will jump in a headset and go to Rome for 20 minutes and get the value out of the VR solution, and then get back out. So I think that's all part of proper deployment strategy. Is one, make sure the content is great and comfortable, and two, use it sparingly. You know, we don't need to be in it for 8 hours a day.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Well, any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you again for having me. If any of you ever has any questions about the space, you can reach out to me directly or grab Trish, and I'm happy to help out in your path to UI and UX in the immersive space. We need more folks like you in our industry.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Trish.
All right. Thanks, TJ.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Stop recording.